What's up, Firestormers? Welcome to another Firestorm educational moment. Today we are talking about the art of the introduction. And we're going to be talking about how to make introductions, how to receive introductions, and how to coach other people on making introductions for you. So let's get into it. First off, a couple of ground rules. Do you know the person well enough to be making the introduction? If you're the middleman, if you're the introducer, do you have a good enough relationship with both parties so that you can, your introduction is going to carry some weight? So think about that first. Also, do you trust both of them to follow up? Are they going to take care of the other person? Because you're sticking your neck out on the line by making the introduction. So if you don't have that, stop. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And just reset, try and build that relationship a little bit more first before you make that introduction. If you've got those two things covered, then we can go on to the next part. And a couple of ground rules before you actually make the introduction. Nobody likes to be sold. Obviously, we all know that. And nobody likes to be put in a position where they feel they're being set up to be sold. So when you make an introduction, keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you structure the introduction in a way where people don't feel like you're just throwing them to the wolves. The other thing is nobody likes to have their time wasted. So when you make the introduction, make sure that you explain why you are making the introduction, and don't let people, don't be ambiguous about it, or don't, try and help, have people figure that out on their own. Give them the courtesy of explaining your thoughts behind making that introduction, even if it's just you thought they would be good partners and should know each other. And then obviously CC both parties, put contact information in there so they can follow up with each other after that, if that makes sense. All right, so the next thing, actually making the introduction. There's 4 different ways that I think you can make an introduction, and they are listed here in order of preference, from most preferable to least preferable. So the first most preferable way to make an introduction is obviously in person. This is sort of the holy grail of introductions. So schedule a lunch, schedule a coffee meeting, a happy hour, invite them out to an event, invite them to go golfing. But the parties that you're trying to introduce, get them in the same room together. Say, Bob, meet Steve, Steve, meet Bob. Here's why I wanted you guys to talk, and let's have a conversation together about this. And that is obviously the easiest way to do it. It's the most effective way to do it. So that people actually get FaceTime. That there's no question about whether or not they're going to follow up with each other, et cetera, et cetera. You can actually get them together right then and there. It's kind of like when your couple friends try to set other people up with single friends and do a double date kind of thing. But hopefully this is way less awkward. The second thing is doing the email introduction with a pre-phone call to both parties to say, hey, Sue, I'm going to introduce you to Veronica, and just heads up on that one, and then call Veronica, hey, I'm going to introduce you to Sue, and here's what I'm thinking, here's why I think you guys should meet, and then follow up with an email reiterating both of those things, put contact information in there. That way they're expecting it. It doesn't, go into their junk folder, or if it does go into their junk folder, they can find it, or they don't just automatically delete the email. So that's the second most preferable thing. Takes a little bit extra legwork on your part, but it'll pay off in the end, I think. The third thing is just doing the email intro without the phone call ahead of time. So if you send the email to both parties, I always do introduction as the subject line, and then I put a little blurb in there about the parties. I put a link to their LinkedIn profiles, maybe a company website if they have it. I put contact information in there and explain what I'm thinking with the introduction, kind of a little bit about what each person does, and then let them kind of take it from there. And then the last thing, which I don't really like at all, but sometimes I see this happen actually pretty often, and it kind of bothers me, is just the email or the business card handoff. So if you say, hey, Joe, I want to introduce you, or it's not even an introduction. I want to refer you to this guy. Here's his business card. Just give him a call. It's kind of lazy. I sometimes question how good the person actually knows that person if they're not willing to go the extra mile to make an email introduction. And I also sometimes question how interested they are in helping me out if it's just, tossing a card at me and saying like, hey, call that guy. A lot of times it winds up just being a cold call, which is kind of annoying. So I actually have an email template that I like to use, and I will put that in the description below, and you guys can copy it, edit it, use it however you want, don't use it at all. Just something to start with. So I'll put that in there. All right, a couple of tips if you're the recipient of the introductions. I want to make sure that, a lot of the stuff that we were talking about was if you're the person making the introduction. So the first thing is send them a link to this video, obviously. Coach them a little bit on how to make proper introductions. That's obviously the easiest thing to do. The second thing is you can really make it about them and say, look, I know you're busy. I really appreciate you taking the time to make this introduction, and I want to make it as easy for you as possible. So take that email introduction template that I'm going to put in the description and write it out. Say, hey, here's exactly what I want to say. Here's the little bio about me, link to my LinkedIn profile, link to my website. And then do a little bit of a stab at the other person and what they do, and then just say, hey, I made this for you, please use this, CC both me and the other person on it, and then you can edit it to change some of the details if you'd like, but that way they don't have to think about it too much, and you're making it super, super easy. Because again, as I've said before in a lot of the other videos, I really believe that people want to help you out, they want you to be successful, but we're busy and we're selfish, and that's it's a time-consuming thing to take and sit down and write the email and say, hey, so-and-so, meet so-and-so. So if you do that legwork for them and just ask them to make the introduction, it's a lot easier. So, and then the last thing is when you get an introduction, please respond promptly. Thank the person for making the introduction. Tell the person that you're being introduced to that you're happy to meet them, and set up a time for a phone call or a coffee meeting or whatever the appropriate next steps are. And the last thing that I didn't really put in here, but it just popped into my mind, is don't go in for the kill. They're not making the introduction to tee up a sale for you, to do it via email. So when you respond, don't be like, hey, thanks so much, here's my pitch, and I had a situation recently where that happened, and it made me feel crummy that I didn't set that up properly, or that I didn't coach the person the right way. So don't go in for the kill right away. Respond, set up a meeting later. You can kind of ease into it a little bit like that. So if you have any questions, comments, things that have worked for you, things that haven't worked for you, post them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm also going to put a link in here to an article that I wrote on LinkedIn with this exact same subject matter. Just kind of typed all out, obviously. And we'd love to see you at some events. I'm going to do a workshop on this at the end of April. So check the website, myfirestorm.com, for the dates and times for the workshop. And have a wonderful April. We'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.